Thank you, Lloyd and Monica. Tremendous job with that teleprompter, by the way. And joining us on the main stage, our producing partners for Leading in the Moment, Jackson Fonder, CEO at UMOM, and Chief Operating Officer Monique Lopez is with us. Oh, so great. Also with us today, Marcia Mintz. She is the CEO at the Boys and Girls Club of the Valley, and Patrick Fitzhugh, back on the stage, Regional Site Director at USAA. All right, let me set this series up. Let's do this. So the leadership team from UMOM is taking on a new mission this season. This series will not just highlight some of the solutions making the biggest impact right now in our community in all sectors, but really take a deeper dive on the leadership strategies making it happen. Now, our goal with this series is to give you ideas on how to make your organizations better, how to create stronger leaders within your organization so you can ultimately have a bigger impact on the community. So here we go. As we sit here in front of a room full of leaders, a lot of employers in the room, a lot of people responsible for recruiting, hiring, retention, these things, these concepts that we throw around. One of the biggest challenges we're facing right now as a community centers around workforce development. You go on LinkedIn, you check your email, you check your inbox, there are panels, there are summits. It feels like every weekend there's something on workforce development. But Jackson, before we even get into this topic, the problem I think that you think is the way I just said that. Like, workforce development kind of makes you cringe a little bit, right?
Yeah, but I cringe all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big topic, right? Workforce development is sort of a simple term, but it covers a lot of things. And when you bring up the topic, sometimes people's eyes glaze over because it includes really a series of solutions when you're talking about employment needs from some of the things you mentioned: recruiting, retaining, upskilling, life skills, employment skills, and the list goes on and on. But what's interesting is, and so I like to be specific when I talk about it. I like to pick one of those things or two of those things because it's just a simpler and more direct conversation. And for today, beginning of September 2024, the hot topic being talked about in mid-2024 is this craziness around that we have a labor shortage. It's real. And businesses who are hiring right now will tell you that there are not enough people for their jobs. The candidates that they're receiving, there's just not enough of them, and the skills that they have don't match the skills that they're looking for. So if talent strategy wasn't high on your list before as a leader, it probably is now.
Yeah, a lot of leaders in this room, again, a lot of people responsible for hiring. So Monique and Jackson will send me data every week, like, hey, look at this study, look at this study, look at this study.
Yeah.
We can talk about data, but also you are seeing it firsthand. You're the COO at UMOM. You're responsible for that organization, but you're also heavily involved in upskilling and workforce development. So talk a little bit about the data, but really, what are you seeing firsthand?
You know, in addition to data, I mean, as Jackson mentioned, like, labor shortage is real. That theme is real. And we're seeing, in addition to that, that we are in a very interesting dynamic in the workplace right now. I mean, we're about 2 years post-pandemic. We've got remote employees, we've got hybrid employees, we've got companies grappling with return to work strategies, we've got 4 different generations in the workplace. We also have employees and future employees that are not shy at all about vocalizing their schedule preferences. And so we are also seeing, in the mix of all of that, the need to look within the building, look within the 4 walls of your company. You've got great people. How can you lean into the talent that you have? And that could look like internal promotions. It could look like going from one level up. It could look like taking on more responsibilities, additional department responsibilities. But we are also seeing that in order to do that successfully, you really have to invest in the training of your talent. It's not just enough to promote folks, it's making sure that the skills that you're looking for, I might have been an excellent individual contributor, and then I'm now being asked to take on people management or department leadership. And in order to be successful, we're seeing that leaning into those training and potentially re-onboarding of people that have been with you for a while to be successful in the new roles is mission critical.
Yeah, like, it sounds like a simple solve. Like, okay, I'm not, workforce development, looking outside my organization, I'm just gonna look in the mirror. But there, like you said, the word investment is key. You have to invest in those strategies. Fitz, so great to have you, by the way, back on stage. So 2 questions for you. Okay. So the first is around kind of what Jackson was saying. Do you agree with, we need to talk about workforce development a little bit differently, like use transparency and candor to really talk about what we are challenged with. And then being in the corporate space at USAA, what are you guys seeing, similar to what Monique was talking about, that is working?
Well, first I'll say, like, the need for employers right now is, we needed this addressed probably 10 years ago from where we're at today. And I also sit on the City of Phoenix Workforce Development Board. And with all the employers that we talk to, regardless of trade or skill, is that there's really these core skills that are missing in newer, younger employees. And that's everything from critical thinking, communication, how to take effective notes. Like, how do you send an email? It's surprising that we're getting 19 and 20-year-olds who struggle with some of this, but the dependency and also the utility of technology has just grown so fast. I think what we looked at we used to look at technology with really a lot of perplex, problems. And what we're seeing with artificial intelligence is a lot of these very complex things are being fixed at a very easy way. The new challenge is talent and talent strategy, and what do we do for the workforce of the future. So yes, we have to, if you're an employer, you have to look at how you develop your own employees and invest in developing. USAA has a long tradition of being focused on employee development. We've partnered with external partners to create our own university to educate employees on artificial intelligence, and actually telling them these are the skills of the future that you need to understand. If you're in a job that has to do with claims, you need to start understanding data and analytics at a higher level, and here's the skills we're going to provide to you on how to do that. Please take your hand and walk with us. No longer can the employers kind of point to the direction, say go and do. We're going to have to really hold their hand on that internal professional development, especially what you just said about re-onboarding them. And look at your 20 and 30-year employees, the skill set that they've been using and probably been very successful with. That skill set may be either replaced or completely different 2 or 3 years from now with how business and how we operate is changing. So I'll tell you what USAA and some of our community partners have done. One, again, we all have our own online university for our employees. We've had great education benefits for a long time. We've now extended those education benefits to children of employees in the household. So we want to invest in developing the skills of the future. Let's start with our employees' kids and get some of that loyalty to come back to us. And it does happen very often. Secondly is how you're showing up in the community. As employers, you can no longer just send your dollars somewhere hoping that that's going to bring you back the talent that you need. You need to understand the workforce system and what workforce development means. And when I say workforce development, most people's eyes glaze over because workforce development consists of the businesses, the workforce system of the state and city, the nonprofits who are providing that, and then the education system. So there's a lot of complexity in here. And then if I start adding in an industry like healthcare, okay, that just makes it a lot more complex. So you're gonna have to show up at the table. I would say if you are focused on talent and talent is something you're gonna prioritize, you need to be plugged in with your local chambers. You need to be at the table of your workforce partners who are investing. And because of that, we now have a partnership with Paradise Valley Community College, Grand Canyon University, where we're gonna start getting some talent to us from underserved, underrepresented populations who we've not had access to in the past.
Marcia, you are a perfect person to talk about the future of our workforce. You lead a large organization, obviously the Boys and Girls Club. You're responsible for developing your own team's talent, but as we talk about Arizona's future workforce, you're working with these kids. So what are some of the gaps that you're seeing, and where can we fill in those gaps with our workforce?
I think what Fitz said really hit home. This needed to be addressed years ago. So about 6 years ago, we started a program called AZ Youth Force, and we wanted to look at what's happening to teens. A lot of the funding that you see out there in the cities and state are really for post-high school, but we know that is too late. You have got to start life and career readiness while they're in high school, and in fact, we're now starting in middle school after the first few years. We've gotten feedback from employers, please start earlier. So what we're doing at Boys and Girls Clubs of the Valley is really reaching out for kids in two different segments, 16 to 19-year-olds that are still in high school, and now we're starting a 14 to 17-year-old emerging leader. But it's not just career development, it's life readiness, what you talked about. Every youth that goes through our program has to go through a mandatory 30-hour of life skill training. They're learning the basic skills, to your point, communication, how to make eye contact at an interview, how to show up on time. We, again, work with a lot of under-resourced teens in our community. Some of them don't know how to navigate the public transportation system. They don't know how to fill out the forms for their paycheck, how to fill out a W-4 form or W-2 form, what it means. So we have staff that does that. They complete their 30 hours, and we are very fortunate. We have employers in the Valley. Our teens need to be paid because they need to work for themselves and their families. So we work with employer partners, and they're put in an 8 to 12-week paid internship. So we don't guarantee they're your employee forever, but I can tell you we're exposing them to the jobs of the future. And most important is access to careers they never thought they could apply for. You know, whether it's finance, banking, engineering, food service, retail, it's not just that frontline worker. We need to teach them about economic mobility and how they can turn a job into a career.
So again, the goal of the series is to take some of what's working and look at your own organizations, figure out how you can apply it here. And so we're going to wrap up this segment with something that's become sort of a calling card here at STN. It's the STN call to action. And Marcia, we'll start with you because you're on a roll here. So what's the call to action? What's the challenge for the leaders in this room?
You know, I think for the leaders in this room, we ask you, especially if you're an employer or a funder, you have to partner with organizations like Boys and Girls Club and other youth-serving organizations in high school or earlier. We need employer partners for paid internships, and we also like to work with pros. We invite you to come in, we do pizza with the pros, and share a little bit about your industry. Let youth see that there is opportunity for them in your job, in your career, in your industry, and you will be shocked at how receptive they are.
All right, Fitz, you're on. Call to action.
Put some skin in the game as an employer. And when I say some, I mean you need to invest heavily in your time and your intention in how we develop the workforce. Businesses want workforce today, but we also need to invest in the workforce 4, 5, 6 years down the line. And if we're not doing that, we're going to be right back here 6 years from now.
All right, Monique, we've been having meetings and calls about this.
Yes.
So what's your call to action for this room?
I mean, I think a similar note around focusing on a talent strategy within your organizations is incredibly important. And what worked in the past may not be right for the present and definitely might not be right for the future. And figuring out in an authentic way what your secret sauce is going to be for your teams to be invested in. You have to meet people where they're at. You have to understand that there are a wide variety of needs of this new labor force, and in order to be successful, it has to be a lean all the way in, invest your time of your teams, of your board, of your executive leadership. It has to be something incredibly important. And if you have talent in the building, figure out a way to maximize that talent because that will go a long way while you're also trying to recruit outside of your agency.
All right, Jackson, this is the first episode of this series. We're going to make a big dent in leadership, organizational success. What's your call to action?
I mean, it's really interesting to me to hear the businesses lean into solving this problem, don't you think? That's quite a change from years past. The very essence of STN in my heart and in my mind is that we're about partnerships and collaboration. And I'll just say this, couple of things. It doesn't take wholesale change. You can do this in increments, you can do this with nuances, you can do this by making tweaks and adjustments. And I'll close it with this. There's not one single leader in this room who's not worried or thinking about how do I attract great employees into my building and how do I keep them? And you make these dents and move the needles by collaborating and talking to people who are willing to share their secrets. It's right there for the taking.
And that's the whole point, sharing the secrets, because If all of the organizations in this room become better, and they're collaborating with USAA, they're collaborating with the Boys and Girls Club, they're collaborating with UMOM, we're all winning. That's the whole goal of this. Thank you guys. What a tremendous opening panel.